this is Mr. Jarrett, and in this video tutorial we are going to be 3D modeling all the parts of this coffee table and assembling it in SolidWorks. So some of the things that we are going to learn is using planes to our advantage. We're going to be mirroring parts. We're actually going to be changing a sketch plane, which is new for a lot of you, doing a sweep cut around the entire top, and we're going to be creating a sub-assembly. So the one discrepancy that I want to kind of point out here is this picture says that these parts are made out of poplar. This is a project that we do in the woodworking class, and poplar is actually the type of wood that we use, but in SolidWorks they do not have poplar as a default type of wood or a material type. So we are going to make the base out of pine, just so it's a different color, and the top is going to be oak. Okay, so let's start with the coffee table top. So you can see the origin is dead center here on the top. It is extruded down, and it kind of gives you a nice big detailed view here, zoomed in, of this fancy edge that goes the whole way around. So I'm going to pull this over to another screen, and in SolidWorks we are going to start a new part. Make sure we are in IPS, which your computer should default to that. And since this is the top, let's sketch it on the top plane. I'm going to get my center rectangle, select my origin and draw out. And then we're going to dimension the overall height or depth, whatever you want to call it in this case, and the overall width. So that is 18 tall by 32 wide. Go to the Features tab and hit Extrude. And we want to make sure this extrudes down if you want to be real picky. It doesn't necessarily matter if it goes up or down, but we just wanted the origin here so we have planes that are cutting it this way. This is 3/4 of an inch thick, so 0.75. Okay, so now we have the big chunk of it, or the rectangular piece. Now we need to make that fancy edge. So to do that, it's kind of a two-step process. First, we need to make a path. So what we will do here is sketch on top, and we actually want to path the whole way around. So you could take the line tool and trace it. You could get the rectangle tool, but another tool that you don't use very often is called Convert Entities. And what Convert Entities does is it copies over an entity, so a point or a line from another sketch or a face into the current sketch that you are currently working on. So in this case, all we have to do is just click on this top, hit the green check, and it traces the entire thing. That might not be the best example to let you understand what Convert Entities is, but it saved us some time of actually having to use the line tool. So now we're going to return from this sketch up in the top right. So that's our path. Okay, I'm going to rotate around here, and we want to draw right here. So I'm going to hit Control 1. That's going to be my front view. I'm going to zoom in on this corner, and I'm going to sketch right here. Okay, now if we look back at that picture that is provided for us, the detailed view shows this fancy corner. So you have to imagine here, though, that this is a solid rectangle. So what we're actually going to be drawing is this straight down piece and this arc, but then we need to close it off by coming back up to the corner here, because we actually want to draw the space that's going to be cut off, because we're going to sweep cut this. So when we sketch, let's use our line tool. I'm going to start down here, click, go all the way up to the corner, click, over, click, down a little bit, and then we need an arc. So you can go back and wiggle over this line, or wiggle over this dot, and it should turn into the arc to get down there. Or you can just use the 3-point arc, connect down here. That's fine too. Okay, so let's go ahead and dimension this. So this little line is a 1/16 of an inch, so 0.0625. And since your SolidWorks rounds the decimal place, I'm going to change it to show you how many decimals it needs to be, or what the exact number is. You don't have to do that, obviously, though. So the arc or the curve itself is going to be a 1/2 inch, so 0.5. And those are the measurements it kind of gives us. So now we just need to get this thing defined. So you see right now my arc kind of goes out past. I'm going to select this arc, hold in Shift, and I'm just going to click this edge. Notice I don't have a line down here, but I'm going to be able to click that edge. And I'm going to set that to tangent. Okay, so it's going to readjust that point where that needs to be. And now you can kind of see it's up too high. So we want this center point, hold in Shift, and this vertical line to be coincident. Okay, so now they're straight up and down, and that locks this in place. So I'm going to hit Return from Sketch. And now I have my profile and my path. So I'll go to the Features tab, Swept Cut, which asks you for a profile and a path. So we already have the profile selected. If yours is not letting you select it, you see how I have a closed-in line here. Those are the two most common things that students forget. The one extra thing that I've seen students do is draw a line down here. We do not want a line down here, so double check that you don't have a line there and that you need to have these two lines, okay, in that profile. Your path is going to be this top edge because we have a sketch going around the top edge. Green check. And there is your fancy edge or your routed edge the whole way around. So this is oak, so we can change that material type. If your oak is not in your favorites, you can go into Edit Material, scroll all the way down to the wood folder, and there's oak. You can add that to favorites if you want, but we're going to apply and close, and we can save that as our top. So you might need to create a new folder. If you do, just hit the new folder button up at the top. So I've already drawn this a couple times. So I'm just creating a demo folder. And I'm going to make this top. So I can close out of that part. So the next part we're going to do here is the leg. The leg has these two intricate cuts on those. Those are called a mortise. Okay, in woodworking there is a joint called a mortise and tenon. Mortise meaning the hole, and a tenon is like a connection arm. And that is going to be created later with these little pieces. Those are your tenons. Okay, so we're going to create a leg, and on the inside of the leg it has a slight taper, as you can see. Okay, and that style of leg is actually called a shaker leg. I bet a lot of your furniture at home has that. The outside is straight, the inside is slightly tapered, just to kind of give it a little bit of uniqueness. So this is what we're going to start out with. We can create a new part. And I'm going to sketch on the top plane again and just extrude up. Get my rectangle tool, just a normal rectangle. And it shows the origin in the top left corner. For this part, it really doesn't matter. So I'll just draw a rectangle. I'm going to dimension one side here to 1.625. So 1.625. Again, I'll change my decimal places so you can see. And I'm going to bring my page back over here just to kind of explain something. So I got that measurement right here, 1.625, but you see right in front of it, there's a little symbol of a square. So what that means is this entire thing is square. So it's an abbreviation or a cool way of doing it, so you don't have to have the same dimension multiple different places. So we can actually set all of these to equal. So I'm just going to highlight them all, set them to equal, and they're all the same size now. Features tab, extrude, and it says the total height of this is 17 1/4. So if you're wondering how we got that measurement, a coffee table from the very bottom to its top is a standard of 18 inches. So since the top is 3/4 of an inch thick, that leaves us with 17 1/4 for the leg. Okay, so now we worked from the bottom up. Let's sketch up on top of this. So get your sketch tool and click up on top. And now we are looking at the top view or the detailed view. So it shows that we have a rectangle here. So I'm just going to get the rectangle tool and just draw a rectangle. And yes, you could do this for the other one, but I'm going to show you a cool little technique. So then we're going to dimension this. So from the outside to this first line is 0.375. Says the overall depth of this is 0.75. And it shows the width of this being 0.3125. So a little bit different number, 0.3125. Okay. So again, you could draw that rectangle because it's pretty simple to do. But if you actually get the line tool and check the box for construction, and you draw from corner to corner, this is something that probably a lot of you have not done yet. You've mirrored across a straight construction line. Yes, this is straight even though it's on an angle, but you've never mirrored across an angled construction line. So mirror entities, we're going to select all four sides here. And the mirror about line is my construction line, and it flips it over this 45-degree line. That's pretty cool. Features tab, cut extrude. And if you look at the right side picture, it says it goes down 1.75. So we have our mortises. Now to do our taper. So to do the taper, you could do this several different ways, but I actually think the easiest way is doing a chamfer. So on the computer, this is very easy. In woodworking, there's a lot of steps to do this. So the chamfer defaults to angle and distance. We actually want a distance and distance. And this is not symmetrical, so we want to change it to asymmetrical, so we have two different measurements. I'm going to pull this back over so you can see the measurements that I'm getting at. So up at the top, it says it's 1.625. So right now we have a rectangular piece, 1.625. So we're going to be chamfering this bottom edge so it tapers up. So if this needs to finish at 1, we need the difference. So that's pretty easy. 1.625 minus 1 is obviously just 0.625. So that's our first measurement. Second measurement is how high up that taper goes, which is 14.25. So in for the measurements, I'm going to type in 0.625. And the second one is going to be 14.25. And we're going to select this bottom line here on the same side of the mortises. Make sure you're selecting the correct ones. So not the face, like I accidentally did, the bottom edge. Okay, like that. Green check. And this is now tapered on the inside. So the outside's straight, the inside's tapered. So we can change our material here to pine. Let's go down in the woods. I'm going to make mine pine so it's a different color. If you want to change yours to something else, go right ahead. If you want to make it oak, you can. It's just going to be harder to see later. So I'm just going to make it pine. Hit apply and close. And now I'm going to save this as my leg. And we can close out of that. The next part we are going to make is called the apron, and there are two aprons. There's a short apron and a long apron. They're pretty much the exact same thing, except for one's longer than the other. So the aprons are the parts that hang underneath the top that connect the legs, so as you can see here. So this one, the short apron, it shows that there is a break view here. So the note says that this does not mean it is broken. This is just a way of shortening the picture so it fits on the page. So don't be alarmed here. This is not something that you have to draw. Basically, this is just a way of shortening up this pattern so we can enlarge this picture and get it as big as possible to fit on this page. So you could draw this in many different ways, but of course when I'm drawing newer things like this, I want to show you new techniques or tricks or just different ways of thinking through things. So what I'm going to be doing is drawing this part actually on the front plane, even though it's here and it's going this way. I'm going to draw it on the front plane so I can actually extrude it back, and it's going to be going in the direction that I want it. Now, of course, you could always rotate these parts in the assembly later, but I'm going to try to think ahead the best I possibly can so I don't have to rotate. Okay, so let's pull this to our other screen and let's get started. And we're going to be drawing this view right here, the right side view, minus this little rectangle. That rectangle is this tenon, which we will do separately in a secondary sketch. So in SolidWorks, let's create a new part. Make sure in inches once again. And like I said, we are going to be sketching on the front plane. So you can get your line tool and you can kind of just sketch out this shape. It goes from the origin. And if you're good with the line tool, you can actually move your mouse back over that dot, that last endpoint, and it turns into an arc. We want an arc that kind of swoops out this way and rotates around. So I'm going to move it back over it again. And that's kind of what we want there. Now, again, if you're not good with this, just hit escape and use the 3-point arc. You want to make an arc that looks like that. And then a little piece that kind of comes up and it connects back to the origin. So again, if you're not good with this, what you would have done here is you would have got the 3-point arc, clicked on the bottom, just kind of drawn up, and then you would have continued with the line tool. Okay, so from here, we got to fix some of this stuff up. At the bottom, we want to make sure that this is tangent, so I'm going to hold in Shift, select the arc in the bottom line, and set that to tangent. We want to select our arc and this line up here, this vertical line, make that tangent as well. We want to make sure that these are vertical and horizontal lines and any other lines that should be vertical or horizontal. So for me, this line right here is not a vertical line. So I'm going to select that and I'm going to make sure that that actually is vertical. Okay, so it should kind of correct up some of the stuff. But if I notice here, I still have this little problem. So the problem that's occurring is this line is going past the center point. So this is not a perfect half circle. So to fix that, we're going to select this line, hold in Shift and select the center point, and we're going to make them coincident. So now this is basically a perfect half circle. It's tangent there and it's coincident up here. So it's a nice half circle. So now we can go ahead and dimension this. And once again, we are drawing what is on the right side view, So that is what this shape is, but we're going to have to pull some of our measurements from other places. So in the front view, it says the overall height is 2.25. The overall depth or width here is actually 0.75. And then if you look at the detailed view of this little arc, it shows that the arc itself is 1/8 of an inch, so 0.125. Again, I'll change my decimal places so you can see what it's supposed to look like. That little tiny vertical line here is 0.0625, so a 1/16 of an inch, So just like that. That should fully define this entire thing. And we're not drawing that tenon right now. So Features tab and Extrude. And you could do this, like I said, in a lot of different ways. What I'm actually going to do is show you a technique that you probably haven't used in a while, and that's mirroring in 3D. So I'm only going to be drawing half of this right now. So if we look at our front view, you can see the origins right here. So if I go from here to here, that means I need half of this number. So 11.5 divided by 2. So if you don't know that off the top of the head, you can just type that in. 11.5 divided by 2. Okay, that's going to be 5 3/4. Green check. And now we are going to be drawing that tenon right here on this end. So get a sketch tool, select the end, rectangle tool, and we're just going to be drawing down from the top, a little rectangle. And if you look at that picture, the right side view basically shows that the measurements from either side, so on this side and this side, are the same. So you could draw a construction line from there to there, and then one from there to there and make it equal, and it would automatically center this. Or you could simply just put in one of the measurements. So this is actually a 5 decimal place measurement. And no, I do not know that off the top of my head, what that actually is in a fraction. But it is 0.21875. The width of this is on the top view, and that is 0.3125. Change my decimal place so you can see that. And the overall height of this piece, you can see actually from the front view, it measures from the bottom up to the blue line, and it says that is 0.75. Should be fully defined. So go to Features tab and Extrude. And we're going to be extruding that out only 0.75. So we have half of this. So I'm going to rotate around so you can see this. So on your Features tab, go up to Mirror. And the mirror face or plane that we want is this one right here. So it's this inside flat surface. And the features to mirror is going to be this body or this extrusion that we did and the other extrusion that we did. And you should see extrusion 1 and 2. If you do not see them, you can also hit the drop down here and just select them there. Green check, and now we have our shape. So let's hit Control 7. And it's going to give us our isometric. And the one that we actually drew here, if I'm going back to my assembly or my exploded view, is going to be this one. That's why that little round bead is facing on the outside. So it's going to be that one. So once again, we'll set this to pine, change our material type. And like I said before, I don't really care what material. This is just for, planning purposes. But I'm setting mine to pine, not oak, so that it is a different color wood. Okay, so apply and close. Then you're going to save this as short apron. Short apron. Okay, short apron. So looking at the original document of this, one of the things that it said in here is changing a sketch plane. That is something that is brand new that you have not done. So to go from this short apron to the long apron, since it's the same thing, you could just change the extrusion, yes, but this is going to be facing the wrong direction. And yes, you can rotate it in the assembly, but once again, I'm trying to show you something new. So take note of how I do this. If you hit the drop down over here for your first sketch, and you right click, and you hit Edit Sketch Plane, it's going to bring up the original plane that you selected. And that was the front plane. So I'm going to hit this drop down and change that to right side plane. And when I hit the green check, it's going to rotate my entire part. Okay, so now that it rotated my whole entire part, now I just need to change the extrusion. So right click on this extrusion, hit Edit Feature. And instead of it being 5.75, if we look at our picture here for the long apron, again, we're only looking at this middle section, 24.75 divided by 2. So you can type that in, 24.75 divided by 2. So that's going to be 12.375. When you hit Enter or Return, it's going to fix everything, and since it got mirrored, it doubled the length. It automatically put these on the outside again. So we're all good. So this is the long apron now. So do not make the mistake of hitting File Save. You need to hit Save As. And you want to change this to a long apron. Okay. Now we have all of our parts. So let's go ahead and assemble. So let's make an assembly. And if it doesn't ask you what parts or what folder you want to bring this from, just hit Browse over here and find your folder. But I'm going to select all 4 of those and hit Open. It's going to put them in alphabetical. Just kind of lay it out like this. Get my top out of the way, put my leg back there, short apron, long apron. And since it is alphabetical, as long as you named them correctly, your leg should be the first one that comes in, and it should be fixed. It should be locked in place. So there's going to be 3 mates that you need to add. So we're going to go to the Assembly tab and hit Mate. So the first and easiest mate here is clicking the very top of this apron and the top of the leg. Green check. And now this apron obviously needs to go in there. So you can do this several different ways, but I think the easiest surface is to click is this one right here. If you rotate around, it would be touching that wall. Okay, green check. And then again, you could do back there and here, but I think it's easier just to click there and here. Slides right in. So 3 mates. So on the top, the inside wall, and then where they touch each other here. Now, you'd think since we drew this apron with the plane right in the middle, so just to kind of show you, and don't do this with me, just to show you, you'd think since we have the plane right in the middle, we'd just be able to mirror this across. But because how this leg is made with these tenons, when you try to mirror across that, it doesn't function the way you'd want it to. So you can see it kind of screws your leg up. We don't actually want that. Okay, what we're going to do is just copy that leg or insert a new one. So you could go insert component, but once again, trying to teach you a new technique. If you hold in Control, you click and hold on your leg and drag it out, it just copies a new one in. So this piece obviously is going to go here. The opening is going to be facing lengthwise like this is, so we can put our long apron in. So go through those 3 mates again. So the top to top, green check. Move this out of my way. The side of the tenon and what it touches. So that inside wall. And then kind of act like you're putting glue in between. So that wall will touch this wall. I hit the undo button on accident. There we go, green check. So now that is all hooked together, that one side. So the last little thing that it said here that we were going to do, besides the offsetting, which is the assembly here, is we're going to create a sub-assembly. So again, something new, okay, a sub-assembly. So over here on the left side, in your feature tree, we're going to select our leg. I'm going to hold in Control. I'll select the the short apron and the other leg. So that was the leg, short apron, and other leg. Notice it turned those black because it's selecting those 3. Then in our feature tree, we're going to right click. Now sometimes when you right click, you see it unselects one of them. We need to go back, make sure that all 3 are selected. And let's try to do this again. Of course, for the demo, it's not going to cooperate. There we go. All right, so what I found is here that you have to right-click on the 3rd one that you actually selected. So once all 3 of those are selected, right-click on the 3rd one, and then in here we want to select Form New Subassembly. So basically what this does, and you might get a warning, you just hit yes or okay. What it does is it takes those 3 and it kind of groups them together. It created an assembly inside your already existing assembly. So it's a sub-assembly, a lower assembly. Okay, so the cool thing with that is now we can actually use that to our advantage later on, and it saves us doing those 6 different mates. So let's actually mate this apron in. Okay, so we'll mate the top to the top. Green check. The wall that it's going to touch on the inside. And then the connection pieces. Acting like you're putting glue in between the surfaces. Okay, so it puts that into place. Now you could use the Control and drag this over and rotate and insert another one. You could just use Insert Component. But trying to show you some techniques or review some techniques, there is a plane right here going through the apron. So we can actually mirror the aprons, just not the legs because of how they are made. So let's go up to linear component pattern, hit the drop down and mirror component. And here for the plane, we're going to hit this drop down. Our apron is in our subassembly, so hit that drop down again. Find your short apron, hit the drop down again. A lot of drop downs here. So just to review, we are in our subassembly, we're finding our short apron, we're moving our mouse over and finding the front plane. That's the plane that cuts through this way. Okay, and the components to mirror is going to be this apron, green check. It should mirror that across. Okay. Now with the same principles here, as long as our computer wants to cooperate, which I've seen some students' computers not actually cooperate when doing this, we should be able to mirror this entire subassembly across the plane that goes through the middle of our long apron. So let's try that. And then I'll show you both ways if it doesn't actually work for you. So instead of going through all those drop downs there, I think it's a lot easier if you hit the drop down over here where your screen is normal that you're used to, and you find the plane that goes through the middle. So in this case, it's going to be the right plane of our long apron. And with that selected, if you hit mirror components, it's already selected here. So I think that is a lot easier. Okay? And then what you want to select is our sub-assembly. So don't click on it here because it might just do one of the individual parts. Hit the drop down and make sure you have the sub-assembly selected. Green check. And it should mirror it straight across, like mine. So mine cooperated. Now, what happens if yours does not? Well, if yours does not, what you can do is you can just bring in this whole subassembly. So you can't hold in control and click on one of these legs because it just copies just that leg. Okay, what you want to do is over here on the left is hold in control and drag the subassembly from your feature tree out here, and it will bring the whole subassembly out. So then you could rotate this. So underneath move, there's rotate. Rotate this thing around and made it like normal. Of course, the mirroring works much faster if yours cooperates. So just good practice though. You can watch me mate this in once again. Okay, and since you already kind of connected this here, you don't even really need to do mates over there because it's not moving. That is fully defined, that part. So the last thing that we need to do is attach our top. So the top is pretty easy. You just do the top of the base, so like the whole frame. Then scroll down and click underneath your top. Green check. So now it's touching. First page, you will see here that there's a little note of how to offset this. So it's 2 inches from the edge, the shorter edge, to the outside of the leg. And then from the long edge to the outside of the leg, it's 1.625. So I'm going to show you 2 different ways of doing it. This is the easy way. Okay, so mating. And if you zoom in, there is a little flat part here. So that flat part to the outside of the leg. And then we'll hit distance or offset. And we want to change this. This is 1.625 because this is the long side of the top. Okay, and make sure that yours is actually offset the correct way. All right, if it's not, you need to hit flip distance. So you can see that's on the inside. This one is flipping, so it's on the outside. Okay, green check. And then the last thing here would be from here to the outside of the leg, distance of 2. And we want to make sure we're going the correct way. Again, I'm not, so flip distance. All right, now to double check this, let's hit Control 6, going underneath, and it should look symmetrical, which it does. Okay, so that is now finished. That's fully defined. In real life, we would attach this with clips right here, but you can see on the picture, I kind of crossed off clips. Okay, so how do you do this the more complicated way? All right, if you really care and you want to learn. Instead of doing the distances, gets confusing here in a second. Instead of doing the distances, why did we draw that top with the origin dead center right here? Well, we drew that top dead center because we can mate the plane of the top that's going this way with the plane of the apron, of the long apron that's going this way. So let's try that once and see how that goes. So find one of your long aprons, okay, and we want the right plane of our long apron. So I selected it. Then over here on the left side, I'm going to find my top. I'm going to hit the drop down. And I'm going to hold in Control. And I'm going to select the plane that's going in that same direction. So luckily, it's the right plane. So right plane of your long apron, right plane of your top. If you select both of them, holding in Control and hit Mate, it's going to mate the 2. Okay, so now they are perfectly lined up. Green check. So let's do that now with a short apron. Okay. So again, I think it's easier to get out of your mate and just find it where your screen is normal. So find your short apron. It doesn't matter which one. And you want the front plane of your short apron. Scroll down, hold in control, and it's going to be the front plane of your top. So having those two selected, hit mate. It will slide that over, line that up, hit the green check. Now you can check this for Control 6, and it's perfectly centered. So that would be mating with planes instead of doing it offset. But either way, this coffee table is now sketched, modeled, and assembled.